There's something fascinating I've noticed in all my years of studying mythology and the human journey. Every society, every culture, every civilization develops what I call polite lies. These are the agreed-upon fictions that everyone pretends to believe, the social conventions that everyone pretends to follow, the narratives that everyone pretends are true, even though deep down many people know they're not. These polite lies are everywhere. They're woven into the fabric of social life. They're part of how we get along, how we maintain harmony, how we keep the peace. How are you? I'm fine. Even when you're not fine. That's a polite lie. Your work is excellent. Even when it's mediocre. That's a polite lie. We're all equal here. Even when there's a clear hierarchy. That's a polite lie. Now, most people go along with these polite lies their entire lives. They participate in the collective fiction. They say the things they're supposed to say, believe the things they're supposed to believe, pretend the things they're supposed to pretend. And in doing so, they maintain their place in the social order. They're accepted. They're approved of. They belong. But then there are those who wake up. Those who, at some point in their journey, stop being able to participate in the polite lies with the same unconsciousness. Those who start to see through the agreed-upon fictions. Those who can no longer pretend that the emperor is wearing clothes when he's clearly naked. These awakened ones disobey the polite lies. Not because they want to be difficult. Not because they're trying to cause trouble. But because they've discovered something more important than social acceptance. They've discovered truth. They've discovered authenticity. They've discovered what I call living your own myth instead of society's myth. Today, I want to share with you 5 reasons why the spiritually awake disobey polite lies. Because if you understand these reasons, you'll understand something profound about the nature of awakening, about the hero's journey, about what it really means to become conscious in an unconscious world. The first reason, they've tasted truth and can't go back. The first and most fundamental reason the awakened disobey polite lies is simple. They've tasted truth, and once you've tasted truth, you can't go back to lies, even polite ones. It's like someone who's eaten real food suddenly being offered cardboard with flavoring. They can see it's not real. They can taste that it's not nourishing. And they can't pretend otherwise, no matter how socially convenient it would be. This is not a metaphor. This is actual experience. When you taste truth directly, when you experience reality unfiltered by social conditioning, something fundamental shifts in your consciousness. It's like a bell that's been rung and cannot be unrung. It's like an eye that's been opened and cannot be closed. You've seen something, tasted something, experienced something that changes you forever. I remember when I was a young man, I had what you might call a mystical experience. I was in the woods just walking, and suddenly the boundary between myself and the trees, between myself and the sky, between myself and everything, it dissolved. For a moment, or perhaps it was hours, I don't know, time stopped meaning anything. I experienced unity. Not as an idea. Not as a concept. But as direct, immediate, undeniable reality. I was not separate from the world. I was the world experiencing itself. When that experience ended, when I came back to my ordinary consciousness, I was fundamentally changed. I couldn't go back to the polite lies of separation. I couldn't participate in the social fiction that we're all isolated individuals competing for resources in a hostile universe. I tasted the truth of our interconnection. And that taste ruined me for the lies. Let me explain what I mean by tasting truth. I'm not talking about intellectual understanding. I'm not talking about knowing facts or having correct beliefs. I'm talking about direct experience of reality, unfiltered by social conditioning, unmediated by collective narratives, undistorted by the need to fit in. This happens in different ways for different people. Sometimes it happens through a spiritual experience, a moment of sudden awakening where the veils fall away and you see things as they actually are. Sometimes it happens through suffering, through a crisis that strips away all the comfortable illusions and forces you to confront reality directly. Sometimes it happens through long practice, through years of meditation or contemplation or self-inquiry that gradually dissolve the filters. However it happens, once it happens, everything changes. You've seen behind the curtain. You've tasted what's real. And now the polite lies that everyone else accepts without question, they taste like ash in your mouth. You can see them for what they are, fictions, constructions, agreed-upon pretenses that serve social cohesion but don't serve truth. I remember talking with a student who had this kind of awakening. She said to me, "Joseph, I can't do it anymore. I can't sit in meetings and pretend that what we're doing matters when I can see it's just busy work. I can't have conversations about trivial things and pretend they're important. I can't participate in the social games where everyone's posturing and positioning and pretending. It all feels so hollow now. But everyone else seems fine with it. What's wrong with me?" And I said, "Nothing's wrong with you. You've woken up. You've tasted truth. And now the lies, even the polite ones, even the socially necessary ones, they're unbearable. This is not a problem. This is the beginning of your real journey. You see, in the hero's journey, there's always a moment when the hero can't go back. They've crossed a threshold. They've seen something they can't unsee. They've learned something they can't unlearn. They're fundamentally changed, and the old world, the comfortable world, the world of polite lies and social fictions, it doesn't fit anymore. Think about the Buddha. He grew up in a palace, carefully shielded from all suffering, all difficulty, all reality. His father created an entire world of polite lies for him, a bubble of pleasant illusion. But then he went outside the palace walls. He saw an old man, a sick man, a dead man. He saw reality. And once he saw it, he couldn't go back. He couldn't return to the palace and pretend everything was fine. He couldn't participate in the polite lies anymore. Or think about Plato's cave allegory. The prisoners in the cave are comfortable with the shadows on the wall. Those shadows are their reality. They have a whole social system built around interpreting those shadows. But then one prisoner breaks free, goes outside, sees the sun, sees reality. When he returns to the cave and tries to tell the others that the shadows aren't real, they think he's crazy. They're comfortable with the polite lie that the shadows are reality. But he can't participate in that lie anymore. He's seen the truth. And here's what Plato understood that's so profound. The freed prisoner doesn't return to the cave because he wants to show off his knowledge or prove he's superior. He returns out of compassion, out of love, out of a recognition that his fellow prisoners are suffering in ignorance. But they don't thank him. They threaten to kill him. Because he's disturbing their comfortable fiction. He's disobeying the polite lie that the shadows are all there is. This is always the response to truth-telling. The comfortable masses, the ones still participating in the polite lies, they don't appreciate being awakened. They see the awakened one not as a liberator but as a troublemaker. Not as a truth-teller but as someone who's lost their mind. This is why Socrates was executed, why Jesus was crucified, why countless prophets and awakened beings throughout history have been rejected, persecuted, killed. The polite lies are deeply embedded in the social fabric. They're not just beliefs. They're the foundation of social cohesion. And when someone refuses to participate, when someone insists on speaking truth instead of maintaining comfortable fiction, they're threatening the entire structure. They're pulling on a thread that, if followed, would unravel everything. This is what happens when you wake up. The polite lies of society, the agreed-upon fictions, they become impossible to participate in with the same unconsciousness. You can see them. You can see through them. And you can't pretend you don't see. Now, this doesn't mean you become obnoxiously honest, constantly confronting everyone with uncomfortable truths. The awakened person learns discernment. They learn when speaking truth is helpful and when it's just ego wanting to prove it's right. They learn that sometimes silence is better than speaking. They learn to pick their battles. But what they can't do, what they absolutely cannot do, is participate in the polite lies from a place of unconsciousness, from a place of believing they're real, from a place of using them to avoid reality. The awakened person has tasted truth, and that taste has ruined them for lies, even polite ones, even socially necessary ones. This is the first reason for disobeying polite lies. Not rebellion for rebellion's sake. Not a desire to be difficult. But simply the natural consequence of having seen what's real. Once you've tasted the difference between truth and fiction, between reality and illusion, between what is and what we pretend, you can't go back. The polite lies lose their power. And you must find a way to live with integrity, even if that means disobeying the social conventions that everyone else follows without question. The second reason, polite lies keep you asleep. The second reason the awakened disobey polite lies is that they've recognized something crucial. Polite lies are not just harmless social lubricants. They're sleeping pills. They're anesthetics. They're the very mechanism by which consciousness is dulled, awareness is dimmed, and the collective trance is maintained. Think about it. What do polite lies do? They smooth over uncomfortable truths. They avoid difficult confrontations. They maintain comfortable illusions. They keep everyone nodding along, agreeing, not rocking the boat, not questioning, not disturbing the peace. Everything is fine. We're making progress. The system works. Just follow the rules and you'll be okay. Be positive. Don't worry about things you can't control. That's just how things are. These are polite lies. And they all have the same effect. They lull you into complacency. They keep you from questioning. They keep you from seeing what's really happening. The awakened person recognizes that participating in these polite lies is participating in their own unconsciousness. Every time you agree to a polite lie, every time you go along with a comfortable fiction, Every time you pretend something is true when you know it's not, you're choosing sleep over wakefulness. You're choosing comfort over consciousness. You're choosing belonging over awakening. I've seen this pattern again and again in the mythological traditions. The hero must always leave the comfortable village, the familiar territory, the place where everyone agrees on what's real and what's not. Why? Because the village is asleep. The collective is in a trance. The agreed-upon reality is an illusion. And as long as the hero stays in that environment, participating in that collective trance, buying into those polite lies, they cannot wake up. The Buddha left the palace. Jesus went into the wilderness. Moses went up the mountain. Every hero must separate from the collective, from the agreed-upon reality, from the polite lies, in order to see clearly, in order to wake up, in order to discover what's actually true. Now, here's what's insidious about polite lies. They're not obviously false like blatant lies. They're not clearly wrong like obvious deceptions. They're subtle. They're half-truths. They're things that are sort of true, kind of true, true enough, true from a certain perspective. And that makes them dangerous. Because they're true enough that you can go along with them, comfortable enough that you don't feel the need to question them, but false enough that they keep you from seeing what's really real. Let me give you an example. One of the biggest polite lies in modern society is this: if you work hard, follow the rules, and do what you're supposed to do, you'll be successful and happy. Now, is this completely false? No. Some people do work hard, follow the rules, and end up successful and happy. But is it the whole truth? Absolutely not. The truth is much more complex. Success has as much to do with luck, timing, circumstances, privilege, and systemic factors as it does with individual effort. Happiness has almost nothing to do with external success and everything to do with internal awareness. And what you're supposed to do is often defined by a system that benefits from your compliance, not from your awakening. But if you point this out, if you challenge this polite lie, you're seen as negative, as pessimistic, as not being a team player. You're disturbing the collective trance. You're questioning the agreed-upon narrative. You're refusing to participate in the comforting fiction. The awakened person does this anyway. Not because they enjoy being contrary, but because they recognize that every polite lie they participate in is a choice for unconsciousness. Every comfortable fiction they accept is a step back into sleep. Every agreed-upon pretense they go along with is a betrayal of the wakefulness they've fought so hard to achieve. This is why spiritual awakening often feels lonely. Because you're surrounded by people who are still asleep, still participating in the polite lies, still comfortable in the collective trance. And you can't participate anymore. You've woken up. And once you're awake, you can see that the polite lies aren't harmless. They're the very mechanism by which people stay asleep. So the awakened person disobeys. Not out of arrogance. Not out of a sense of superiority. But out of a commitment to consciousness. Out of a recognition that wakefulness requires constant vigilance. Out of an understanding that every time you participate in a polite lie, you're choosing sleep. And they've worked too hard to wake up to go back to sleep now, no matter how comfortable, no matter how socially acceptable, no matter how polite that sleep might be. The third reason, authenticity demands it. The third reason the awakened disobey polite lies is that they've discovered something precious: authenticity. And once you've tasted what it's like to be genuinely yourself, to speak from your real experience, to live from your actual truth, you cannot go back to the performance, the pretense, the mask-wearing that polite lies require. Let me be clear about what I mean by authenticity. I'm not talking about being brutally honest all the time. I'm not talking about saying every thought that crosses your mind. I'm not talking about being rude or cruel or insensitive in the name of keeping it real. That's not authenticity. That's often just ego wanting to justify its bad behavior. Authenticity is something much deeper. It's being aligned with your true nature. It's speaking from your genuine experience. It's acting from your real values rather than from social expectations. It's being the same person in public that you are in private. It's having integrity in the original sense of the word. Wholeness, integration, not being split into a public persona and a private reality. And here's the thing about polite lies: they require you to split yourself. They require you to say things you don't mean, to pretend things you don't feel, to act in ways that don't align with your truth. They require performance, persona, mask. And every time you do this, every time you participate in a polite lie, you fragment yourself a little more. You move a little further from authenticity. You become a little less yourself and a little more the character that society wants you to play. The awakened person has recognized this fragmentation and refuses it. They've tasted the wholeness, the integration, the relief of being genuinely themselves. And that taste is so sweet, so nourishing, so fundamentally right that they cannot go back to fragmentation. no matter what social benefits it might offer. I think of the hero's journey again. The hero must always be true to their calling, even when that calling contradicts social expectations. Even when it means disobeying what everyone else says they should do. Even when it means refusing to play the role that's been assigned to them. Think about Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He's supposed to fight in a war. It's his duty. It's his role. It's what society expects. But he doesn't want to. His heart rebels against it. And he's honest about that. He doesn't pretend. He doesn't go along with the polite lie that of course he'll do his duty, of course he'll fight, of course he'll play his assigned role. He admits his doubt, his fear, his confusion. He's authentic. And that authenticity is what creates the space for Krishna to teach him, for transformation to occur, for real understanding to emerge. Or think about the many myths of heroes who must disobey their parents, their kings, their societies, their gods even, in order to be true to their own calling. The hero must often choose authenticity over obedience, truth over politeness, their own path over the prescribed path. This is not easy. Society punishes inauthenticity only when it's obvious. But it actually rewards inauthenticity most of the time. It rewards people who go along, who play their roles, who participate in the polite lies. It rewards the performance. And it punishes those who break character, who speak their truth, who refuse to pretend. I've seen this in academia where I spent much of my career. There's a tremendous amount of pretense in academic life. Pretending that research that's obviously trivial is important. Pretending that teaching that's clearly ineffective is good. Pretending that political maneuvering is about principle. And the people who go along with these polite lies, they get tenure, they get promoted, they get awards. But the ones who refuse to pretend, who point out that the emperor has no clothes, who insist on authenticity even when it's inconvenient, they're labeled as difficult, as not team players, as lacking collegiality. The system rewards conformity and punishes authenticity, even while it claims to value free thinking and truth-seeking. This is the paradox the awakened person must navigate. The very institutions that claim to be about truth often maintain themselves through polite lies. The very communities that claim to value authenticity often function through performance and pretense. The very societies that claim to honor individual expression actually demand conformity. But the awakened person does it anyway. Because they've discovered that no amount of social approval is worth the cost of losing yourself. No amount of belonging is worth the price of betraying your own truth. No amount of peacekeeping is worth the violence of fragmenting your own soul. This is what I mean when I say, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Not who society wants you to be. Not who the polite lies would make you. But who you actually are in your deepest nature, in your most authentic being. And being who you are, being authentic, requires disobeying polite lies. Because polite lies are almost always asking you to be someone you're not, to pretend something you don't feel, to agree to something you don't believe. And the awakened person has chosen themselves over social acceptance. They've chosen authenticity over approval. They've chosen integrity over integration into a system that requires fragmentation. This doesn't mean they're constantly confrontational. It doesn't mean they're always challenging everyone. The awakened person learns skillful means, learns how to navigate social situations without completely abandoning their authenticity. But what they won't do, what they absolutely cannot do, is fundamentally betray themselves for the sake of a polite lie. They've tasted wholeness, and they refuse to return to fragmentation. The fourth reason, polite lies serve power, not people. The fourth reason the awakened disobey polite lies is that they've recognized something that most people never see. Polite lies are not neutral. They're not just harmless social conventions. They serve a purpose. And that purpose is usually to maintain existing power structures, to protect the status quo, to keep the system running smoothly, even when that system is fundamentally unjust or dysfunctional. This is a crucial insight. Polite lies are not random. They're not accidents. They emerge because they're useful. But useful to whom? Usually to those in power. To those who benefit from things staying the way they are. To those who don't want difficult questions asked or uncomfortable truths spoken. Let me give you some examples. Don't talk about money. That's a polite lie. And who does it serve? It serves those who have money because it prevents those who don't from organizing, from comparing, from recognizing the systemic inequalities. Don't talk about politics or religion. That's a polite lie. And who does it serve? It serves the status quo because it prevents people from examining the systems they live under, from questioning the beliefs they've inherited, from organizing for change. Be grateful for what you have. That's often a polite lie. Yes, gratitude is valuable. But this particular formulation is often used to silence people who are pointing out injustice, who are demanding change, who are refusing to accept unacceptable conditions. It's a way of saying, don't rock the boat. Don't cause trouble. Just be quiet and accept things as they are. The awakened person sees through this. They recognize that many of the polite lies they're expected to participate in are not about social harmony at all. They're about social control. They're about keeping people from questioning, from seeing clearly, from challenging what needs to be challenged. In mythology, this is often represented by the false king, the corrupt ruler, the dragon hoarding the gold. These are symbols of power structures that have become rigid, that serve themselves rather than the people, that maintain themselves through deception and illusion. And the hero must often disobey the rules of these power structures, must refuse to participate in their lies, in order to serve a higher truth, a deeper good. Think about the story of the emperor's new clothes. Everyone participates in the polite lie that the emperor is wearing magnificent garments, even though he's naked. Why? Because challenging the lie would be impolite. It would be disruptive. It would be questioning authority. So everyone goes along with it, everyone pretends, everyone participates in the collective fiction. Until a child, innocent and unconditioned, points out the obvious truth: the emperor is naked. The child in that story is like the awakened person. They're not trying to cause trouble. They're not being rebellious for rebellion's sake. They're simply speaking the obvious truth that everyone else is too polite, too fearful, too conditioned to speak. I've seen this pattern throughout history. Every major social transformation has been initiated by people who refused to participate in the polite lies of their time. People who disobeyed the social conventions that kept injustice in place. People who spoke uncomfortable truths that everyone else was politely ignoring. The abolitionists who wouldn't participate in the polite lie that slavery was just how things were. The suffragettes who wouldn't participate in the polite lie that women didn't need or want the vote. The civil rights activists who wouldn't participate in the polite lie that segregation was acceptable. In every case, they were seen as impolite, as troublemakers, as not respecting social norms. Because they were disobeying the polite lies that served the existing power structures. Think about Rosa Parks. She committed what was, in the social context of her time and place, an act of supreme impoliteness. She refused to give up her seat on the bus. She disobeyed a social convention that everyone else was following. She broke a rule that was designed to maintain a particular power structure. And she was arrested for it. But what was she really doing? She was refusing to participate in a polite lie. The polite lie that segregation was acceptable, that it was just how things were, that nice people shouldn't cause trouble about it. She saw through that lie to the truth underneath, that segregation was fundamentally unjust, that it violated human dignity, that it needed to be challenged regardless of how impolite that challenge might be. Or think about the whistleblowers, the people who expose corruption and wrongdoing in institutions. They're always seen as disloyal, as betrayers, as people who didn't respect the team. Why? Because they refused to participate in the polite lie that everything was fine, that the organization was honorable, that the problem should be handled quietly internally. They insisted on truth instead of comfortable fiction. The mythology is full of these figures. The trickster who reveals uncomfortable truths. The fool who speaks wisdom that the wise are too polite to say. The prophet who calls out injustice that everyone else is pretending not to see. These archetypal figures appear in every culture because they represent something essential: the necessity of disobeying polite lies in service of truth and justice. The awakened person understands this dynamic. They recognize that their disobedience of polite lies is not just about personal authenticity. It's about refusing to be complicit in systems that harm people. It's about refusing to use their silence and compliance to maintain injustice. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most moral thing you can do is be impolite. This is a delicate balance. Not every polite lie is serving oppression. Some really are just social lubricants that help people get along. The awakened person develops discernment. They learn to distinguish between harmless social conventions and harmful social control. They learn when to let things pass and when to speak up. They learn skillful means. But what they don't do is blindly obey all polite lies out of a desire to be nice, to be liked, to not cause trouble. They recognize that sometimes causing trouble, sometimes being impolite, sometimes disobeying social conventions is exactly what's needed. Because those conventions are serving power, not people. And they've chosen to serve truth and justice rather than comfort and conformity. The fifth reason: life is too short for pretense. And now we come to the fifth reason the awakened disobey polite lies. It's perhaps the simplest and most profound. Life is too short for pretense. The awakened person has recognized the fundamental impermanence of existence, the preciousness of time, the reality of death. And in light of that recognition, wasting any moment on polite lies, on social pretenses, on inauthentic performance, becomes unthinkable. When you really understand that you're going to die, that this life is finite, that you have a limited number of breaths, a limited number of days, a limited number of conversations, it changes everything. Suddenly, spending those precious moments pretending, performing, participating in fictions for the sake of social acceptance, it seems not just wrong but insane. It seems like the ultimate waste of the gift of life. I've noticed this again and again. People who've had near-death experiences, people who've been diagnosed with terminal illnesses, people who've lost someone close to them, they often stop participating in polite lies. Not because they've become rude or insensitive, but because they've been reminded of what really matters. And what really matters is not social approval, not comfortable fictions, not maintaining pretenses. What really matters is truth, connection, meaning, love, authentic presence. In mythology, the awareness of death is often what initiates the hero's journey. The Buddha saw a corpse and recognized that he too would die. That recognition shattered his comfortable illusions and sent him on his quest for truth. In the Gilgamesh epic, the death of Enkidu awakens Gilgamesh to his own mortality and transforms his entire approach to life. Death is the great teacher. It strips away pretense. It reveals what's essential. It shows you what really matters. And one of the things it shows you is that polite lies don't matter. Social approval doesn't matter. Maintaining comfortable fictions doesn't matter. What matters is living authentically, truthfully, fully for whatever time you have. The awakened person has internalized this teaching. They've faced their mortality, if not physically then psychologically. They've recognized the impermanence of existence. And in light of that recognition, they've made a choice. They will not waste their precious, finite, irreplaceable life on pretense. This doesn't mean they become morbid or obsessed with death. On the contrary, recognizing the impermanence of life often makes people more alive, more present, more engaged. But it also makes them less willing to waste time on things that don't really matter. And polite lies definitely don't matter. Not when measured against the reality of death, the preciousness of time, the irreplaceability of each moment. I think of the medieval practice of memento mori, remember you will die. Monks would keep skulls in their cells, not to be morbid but to remember what's real, to keep perspective, to not get lost in trivial concerns and social pretenses. The awakened person carries this awareness with them always, not as a burden but as a liberation. When you remember you're going to die, polite lies lose their power. Who cares if someone is offended by your honesty when you both only have a limited time to live? Who cares if you break some social convention when life is so short and there's so much that really matters to do and say and be? Who cares about maintaining comfortable fictions when real connection, real truth, real presence is available if you're just willing to drop the pretense? I think about my own experience with this. As I've gotten older, as I've lost friends and colleagues, as I've felt my own mortality more acutely, I've become much less willing to waste time on polite lies. Life is too precious. Time is too limited. I want real conversations, not small talk. I want genuine connection, not social performance. I want to say what I actually think and feel while I still can, rather than taking my truth to the grave unsaid because I was too polite to disturb anyone's comfort. This doesn't mean I've become rude or inconsiderate. I still care about people's feelings. I still try to be kind. But I no longer confuse kindness with pretense. I no longer mistake politeness for truth. And I no longer sacrifice authenticity for the sake of maintaining comfortable fictions that serve no one. There's a beautiful story from the Zen tradition about a master who was dying. His students gathered around, weeping, asking for final words of wisdom. And the master laughed. He said, "I've been dying all along. Every moment is death and rebirth. This moment now, whatever comes, it's just more of the same dance." And then he closed his eyes and died with a smile on his face. That master understood something profound. Death is not something that happens at the end of life. Death is woven into every moment. Every breath is a small death and a small birth. Every moment is impermanent, passing, gone. And when you really understand this, when you really feel it, you stop wasting any moment on pretense. The awakened person lives with this awareness. They know that this conversation might be their last. This day might be their last. This breath might be their last. And in that knowledge, they choose to be real, to be present, to be authentic, rather than wasting their precious, limited, irreplaceable time on polite lies and social performances that don't matter and never did. This is why elders, people who've lived long lives, often become more direct, more honest, less concerned with social niceties. They've seen enough of life to know what matters and what doesn't. They've lost enough people to know that pretense is a waste of precious time. They've grown close enough to their own death to prioritize authenticity over approval. The awakened person has this elder wisdom regardless of their age. They've recognized the fundamental truth that the polite lies don't serve them, don't nourish them, don't make their limited time more meaningful. If anything, polite lies steal time, steal presence, steal the possibility of genuine connection and authentic living. So they disobey. Not because they're rebellious. Not because they enjoy being contrary. But because they've done the math. They've recognized that life is finite and precious. And they've decided that they will spend their finite, precious time on what's real, what's true, what's authentic, what really matters. Not on polite lies, social pretenses, comfortable fictions that serve no one except the sleeping masses who've forgotten that they're going to die. This is perhaps the most powerful reason for disobeying polite lies. When you really face your mortality, when you really recognize the impermanence of existence, when you really understand that you have limited time and then you're gone, you can't help but disobey the polite lies. Because participating in them becomes a betrayal of life itself. And the awakened person loves life too much, honors existence too deeply, respects the gift of consciousness too profoundly to waste any of it on pretense. The path of sacred disobedience. So there you have it. 5 reasons why the spiritually awake disobey polite lies. They've tasted truth and can't go back. They recognize that polite lies keep you asleep. Authenticity demands it. Polite lies serve power, not people. And life is too short for pretense. These are not small reasons. These are profound recognitions that change everything about how you live, how you relate, how you participate in society. And once you understand them, once you really grasp them, you cannot go back to unconscious participation in polite lies. You've woken up. And waking up means seeing through the comfortable fictions that everyone else takes for granted. Now, I want to be clear about something. The awakened person's disobedience of polite lies is not crude or cruel. It's not about being brutally honest all the time or confronting everyone with uncomfortable truths at every opportunity. The awakened person develops what the Buddhists call skillful means. They learn discernment. They learn when to speak and when to be silent. They learn how to be truthful without being hurtful. They learn to pick their battles. There's an art to this. The awakened person learns to distinguish between different types of polite lies. Some are truly harmful, maintaining injustice or keeping people asleep. These need to be challenged. Others are genuinely harmless, just social lubricants that help people navigate complex situations without constant conflict. These can often be let pass. For example, when someone asks, "How are you?" as a greeting, they're not really asking for a detailed account of your physical and emotional state. To launch into such an account would be to miss the point of the interaction. This is a harmless social ritual, not a meaningful lie. The awakened person can participate in such rituals without betraying their commitment to truth. But when someone says, "Everything is fine," when systems are clearly broken, when people are clearly suffering, when change is clearly needed, that's a different kind of polite lie. That's a lie that maintains harmful ignorance, that prevents necessary action, that keeps people complicit in injustice. That lie needs to be challenged even if the challenge is uncomfortable. The awakened person also learns how to speak truth in ways that people can hear. This doesn't mean watering down the truth or compromising it. It means presenting it skillfully, compassionately, with timing and context in mind. The prophet who shouts truth in a way that just makes people defensive has failed, even if they were technically right. The awakened person seeks not just to be right but to be effective, not just to speak truth but to help truth be heard and understood. I think of this as the difference between the prophet and the teacher. The prophet just speaks truth, often in harsh or confrontational ways, not caring how it lands. The teacher also speaks truth, but with care for the student, with understanding of where they are and what they're ready to hear, with skillful means designed to help truth be received rather than rejected. The awakened person is more like the teacher than the prophet. They're committed to truth, absolutely. They won't participate in polite lies, definitely. But they've also developed the wisdom to know how to speak truth in ways that serve rather than just satisfy their own need to be right. But what they don't do, what they cannot do, is fundamentally betray their awakening for the sake of social comfort. They don't go back to sleep just because staying awake is socially awkward. They don't abandon truth just because lies are more polite. They don't sacrifice authenticity just because pretense is more acceptable. This is what I call sacred disobedience. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's not contrarianism or cynicism or negativity. It's disobedience in service of something higher. Truth, consciousness, authenticity, justice, life itself. It's refusing to participate in the collective trance. It's declining the invitation to sleepwalk through life. It's saying no to comfortable lies in order to say yes to uncomfortable truths. This kind of disobedience is at the heart of every hero's journey. The hero must always disobey something. The call of the familiar, the expectations of society, the rules of the kingdom, the commands of the false king. The hero must break the rules that keep people asleep in order to find the truth that wakes them up. And here's what's beautiful. When you practice this sacred disobedience, when you refuse to participate in polite lies out of your commitment to truth and authenticity, you give others permission to do the same. You show them that it's possible to live differently. You demonstrate that you can be honest and still be kind, authentic and still be considerate, awakened and still be functional in the world. I've seen this ripple effect many times. One person has the courage to speak a truth that everyone else was thinking but no one was saying. And suddenly others find their voice too. One person refuses to participate in a polite lie that was making everyone uncomfortable. And suddenly the whole room relaxes, the pretense drops, and real conversation becomes possible. This is because polite lies are actually exhausting to maintain. They require constant vigilance, constant performance, constant energy. Most people are tired of them, but they don't know how to stop because everyone else seems to be going along. When one person breaks the pattern, when one person demonstrates that you can live without the polite lies, it gives others permission to do the same. I remember a faculty meeting where we were all pretending that a clearly bad decision was acceptable. Everyone knew it was wrong, but no one wanted to be the one to say it. The polite lie was that we all supported the decision. Finally, one colleague, someone who'd been on a spiritual path for years, simply said, "I don't think this is right. I think we're making a mistake." That's all. Simple, direct, true. And the room changed. Others started speaking up. The pretense dissolved. We ended up having a real conversation and making a better decision. All because one person refused to participate in the polite lie. This is the gift the awakened person brings to community. Not disruption for its own sake. Not chaos or conflict. But the possibility of reality, of truth, of genuine interaction. They show that you don't have to maintain the exhausting pretenses. They demonstrate that there's another way to be together, a way based on authenticity rather than performance. You become what I call a bearer of light in the cave. Remember Plato's allegory? The person who escapes the cave and sees the sun, they have a choice. They can stay in the light, comfortable and free. Or they can return to the cave to help others escape. The true hero returns. They go back into the darkness not to stay there but to guide others out. This is what the awakened person does when they disobey polite lies in society. They're not just saving themselves. They're offering a way out to others. They're showing that there's an alternative to the collective trance. They're demonstrating that you can live with truth and authenticity even in a world of pretense and fiction. But here's what's crucial to understand. This return to the cave is dangerous. Plato knew this. In his allegory, he says that the freed prisoner who returns to help others will be hated, will be ridiculed, will possibly be killed. Why? Because they're threatening the entire system of comfortable illusions that the cave dwellers have built their lives around. This is not an exaggeration. Throughout history, people who've disobeyed polite lies, who've spoken uncomfortable truths, who've challenged collective fictions, they've been persecuted. They've been marginalized. They've been silenced. Sometimes they've been killed. Jesus spoke truth in a society of religious and political polite lies. He was crucified. Socrates questioned the unexamined assumptions of Athenian society. He was forced to drink hemlock. Martin Luther King Jr. challenged the polite lies of racial harmony that masked deep injustice. He was assassinated. The list goes on. This is the risk of sacred disobedience. When you refuse to participate in polite lies, when you insist on truth in a world of fiction, when you break the collective trance, you make yourself vulnerable. The system will try to silence you, to marginalize you, to discredit you because you're threatening its foundation. Is this comfortable? No. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Will you be misunderstood? Often. Will you be criticized? Probably. Will some people think you're arrogant or difficult or strange? Yes. This is the price of awakening. This is the cost of consciousness. This is what it means to be a hero in an unconscious world. But it's worth it. Because on the other side of the discomfort, on the other side of the social awkwardness, on the other side of the criticism and misunderstanding, there's something precious. Your authentic self. Your true life. Your real journey. Your own myth, not society's script. And here's what I've discovered in my own life and in studying the lives of awakened beings throughout history. The discomfort doesn't last forever. Initially, yes, disobeying polite lies is uncomfortable. You feel awkward. You feel like you're breaking unspoken rules. You worry about what people think. You second-guess yourself. But as you continue, as you persist in your commitment to truth and authenticity, something shifts. You become more comfortable in your own skin. You care less about social approval and more about inner integrity. You find your people, the ones who also value truth over comfort, authenticity over pretense. And you discover that the discomfort of disobeying polite lies is nothing compared to the agony of betraying yourself. I think of this as developing what I call mythological consciousness. Most people live in sociological consciousness. They see themselves primarily as members of society, defined by their roles, judged by social standards, motivated by social approval. Their question is always, what will people think? What does society expect? How do I fit in? But those who've awakened to mythological consciousness see themselves differently. They see themselves as heroes on a journey, as individuals following a calling, as souls with a destiny. Their question is, what is my myth? What is my journey? What am I called to do? And from that perspective, polite lies are just obstacles on the path, social conventions that might need to be disobeyed in service of the greater journey. This shift from sociological to mythological consciousness changes everything. You're no longer primarily motivated by fitting in or being accepted. You're motivated by living your truth, following your calling, fulfilling your destiny. And in that shift, the power of polite lies to control you dissolves. You still participate in society. You still have relationships. You still fulfill responsibilities. But you're no longer enslaved to social approval. You're no longer trapped by the need to maintain polite fictions. You're free to live authentically, to speak truthfully, to be yourself, because your primary allegiance is to your own myth, your own journey, your own soul, not to society's comfortable fictions. And ultimately, that's what the disobedience of polite lies is about. It's about reclaiming your own life. It's about living your own truth rather than society's comfortable fictions. It's about being who you really are rather than who the collective trance wants you to pretend to be. This is the hero's journey. This is the path of awakening. This is what it means to truly live. Not to sleepwalk through life participating in polite lies and comfortable fictions. But to wake up, to see clearly, to speak truthfully, to live authentically, even when that means disobeying the social conventions that everyone else follows without question. The world needs people who are willing to do this. The world needs heroes who will refuse to participate in the collective trance. The world needs awakened beings who will disobey polite lies in service of truth. Not to be difficult. Not to cause chaos. But to offer an alternative, to show a way out, to bear light into the cave. And let me be clear about something. This is not about being perfect. The awakened person is not someone who never participates in any polite lie ever. That's not realistic. That's not human. We all participate in social conventions sometimes. We all bite our tongue sometimes. We all choose peace over truth in certain situations. The difference is consciousness. The awakened person is aware when they're participating in a polite lie. They make a conscious choice. They weigh the costs and benefits. They ask themselves, is this a harmless social lubricant or a harmful maintenance of injustice? Is this a situation where speaking truth would help or just create unnecessary conflict? Am I being called to challenge this lie or to let it pass? And they make mistakes. They speak when they should have been silent. They stay silent when they should have spoken. They challenge the wrong lies. They let important lies pass. This is part of being human. The awakened person is not a perfect robot of truth-telling. They're a human being trying to navigate the complex territory between truth and social harmony, between authenticity and kindness, between challenging injustice and maintaining relationships. What matters is not perfection but direction. The awakened person is moving toward greater truth, greater authenticity, greater consciousness. They're developing discernment. They're learning when to speak and when to be silent. They're getting better at distinguishing between harmless social conventions and harmful collective fictions. They're becoming more skillful at speaking truth in ways that people can hear. This is a lifelong practice. I'm in my 90s now and I'm still learning, still making mistakes, still sometimes participating in polite lies when I shouldn't, still sometimes challenging lies when I should let them pass. The journey toward living in complete truth is asymptotic. You get closer and closer but you never quite arrive. And that's okay. What matters is the direction, the commitment, the continuous practice of choosing truth over comfort, authenticity over approval, consciousness over the collective trance. I think of this as what the alchemists called the great work. The transformation of lead into gold. The purification of consciousness. The development of the awakened human being. It's not a destination you reach and then you're done. It's a continuous process, a lifelong journey, an eternal practice of choosing consciousness over unconsciousness, truth over lies, authenticity over pretense. And every time you make that choice, every time you disobey a polite lie in service of truth, every time you refuse to participate in the collective trance, you contribute not just to your own awakening but to the awakening of consciousness in the world. You're part of the great work. You're one of the heroes working to free humanity from the cave of illusion. You're a bearer of light in the darkness. So if you find yourself increasingly unable to participate in polite lies, if you find yourself uncomfortable with social pretenses, if you find yourself questioning the agreed-upon fictions that everyone else accepts without question, don't think something is wrong with you. You're waking up. You're seeing through the veil. You're recognizing the difference between truth and comfortable fiction. And now you have a choice. You can try to go back to sleep, to participate in the polite lies, to maintain the pretenses. Some people try this. But once you've woken up, once you've tasted truth, it's very difficult to go back to lies, even polite ones. I've seen people try. They have an awakening experience, they see through the polite lies, and then they get scared. The social consequences seem too great. The loneliness seems too much. The difficulty seems too hard. So they try to go back to sleep. They try to participate in the polite lies again with the same unconsciousness they had before. But it doesn't work. Once you've seen, you can't unsee. Once you've tasted truth, lies taste like poison. You can pretend to participate in the polite lies, but you're just performing. There's a deadness inside, a sense of betrayal, a feeling that you're abandoning your own soul for the sake of social comfort. And eventually this becomes unbearable. The cost of participating in polite lies once you've awakened is too high. It creates a split in your psyche, a division in your being, a sense of living a lie that's worse than any social discomfort that comes from speaking truth. So the choice becomes clear. Not easy, but clear. You can choose the agony of self-betrayal and the comfort of social acceptance. Or you can choose the discomfort of social awkwardness and the integrity of self-honesty. You can choose to lie and be liked. Or you can choose to be authentic and risk being rejected. Most people, when presented with this choice consciously, choose authenticity. Because once you've really felt the difference, once you've tasted what it's like to live in alignment with your truth versus living in betrayal of it, the choice is obvious. Social acceptance is not worth the price of your soul. Or you can embrace your awakening. You can accept that you're going to be a little uncomfortable, a little awkward, a little out of step with the collective. You can learn the art of sacred disobedience, of refusing polite lies while still being kind, of speaking truth while still being skillful, of living authentically while still being functional in the world. This is the path I'm inviting you to. Not the comfortable path of going along with everything. Not the easy path of participating in all the polite lies. But the heroic path of awakening, of consciousness, of living your own truth even when the world wants you to pretend. And let me tell you what happens when you commit to this path, when you really embrace sacred disobedience, when you make the choice for truth over comfort. Initially, yes, there's discomfort, there's awkwardness, there's the feeling of not fitting in, of being different, of swimming against the current while everyone else flows downstream. But then something beautiful happens. You start to find your real people. Not the ones who like you because you went along with everything. Not the ones who related to your persona. But the ones who appreciate your authenticity, who value your truth-telling, who are also disobeying polite lies in their own way. You find your tribe, but it's not the tribe of birth or convenience or proximity. It's the tribe of consciousness, the fellowship of the awakened, the community of those who've also chosen truth over comfort. And these relationships, these connections forged in authenticity rather than pretense, they're deeper, richer, more real than any relationship based on maintaining polite fictions. You also discover that you have more energy. Maintaining polite lies is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, constant performance, constant management of what you say and don't say, what you reveal and what you hide. When you drop that, when you commit to authenticity, you have so much more energy available for what actually matters. And you sleep better. Literally. There's research on this. People who live authentically, who don't maintain significant splits between their public and private selves, they have less anxiety, less depression, better sleep. Because they're not carrying the burden of pretense. They're not maintaining exhausting fictions. They're just being themselves, and there's a deep relief in that. It's not easy, but it's real. It's not comfortable, but it's authentic. It's not popular, but it's true. And in the end, that's what matters. Not whether you were liked, not whether you fit in, not whether you obeyed all the polite lies, but whether you lived your truth, whether you followed your path, whether you became who you really are. The polite lies will always be there, inviting you back to sleep, offering you comfort and acceptance in exchange for your consciousness. But so will the call to awakening, inviting you to wake up, offering you truth and authenticity in exchange for your courage. Which will you choose? The polite lies or the sacred disobedience? The comfortable fiction or the uncomfortable truth? The collective trance or your own awakening? Choose wisely. Because this choice will determine not just how you live, but whether you truly live at all.